Howdy, folks. Welcome to the podcast Iron. My name is Laura Mullen Vermilia, and on this podcast, I interview members of the cast iron art community in order to inspire, educate, and spread ideas about iron casting and cast iron art. I am delighted to introduce Jam Rohr as today's guest. Jam is an active artist and sculptor, as well as being the co-owner of Black Dog Metal Arts, LLC, with her husband, Danny Rohr. She is also the owner and mastermind behind Radish Kitchen, the first dedicated vegan cafe in Peoria, Illinois. Jam, thanks for letting me interview you about your life and your iron art origin story. I really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, I enjoy all of our chats, but it was really great to get a chance to dive into your iron art background and also hear the details of how business with Radish Kitchen is going. Your story is the perfect example of how skills you gained from an art-related endeavor translated to help you in an unrelated yet equally important aspect of your life. You demonstrate this because establishing Black Dog Metal Arts LLC gave you the know-how for starting a business, and then only a few years later, this familiarity with the process helped pave the way for you officially establishing Radish Kitchen. The podcast Iron Show is sponsored in part by supporters on Patreon. So thank you to everyone who has joined as a member on Patreon to help me afford the production costs of this show. I am tremendously honored to say that this episode is brought to you by our top supporter, Sloss Metal Arts, which is a national center for iron casting and metal art. For more information about Sloss Metal Arts, visit their website, slossmetalarts.com. I would also suggest that you follow Sloss Metal Arts on Instagram. I've been following them for a while, and their most recent post was about an exhibition that was held this past Friday, August 12th. The exhibition celebrated all of the hard work from the Summer Youth Apprenticeship Program. And the post's photos show that the exhibition was held in the Powerhouse. I don't know how many of you remember the Sloss National Conference exhibitions in that same space before the new building was built, but I definitely do. Their Instagram is a great way to stay in touch with their programs throughout the year, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, for all of you listening or watching, thanks so much for tuning in, and please enjoy. Jam Rohr, officially welcome to the podcast Iron. I've been looking forward to this interview ever since I interviewed your husband, Danny, and it's just a pleasure to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it too.
And so we're going to start off in the as is tradition. Well, Jam Rohr, who the hell are you anyways?
So Jam Rohr, I am a sculptor. I work in iron, do a lot of woodworking and knitting. I did a series of work where I worked with human hair. But as with a lot of sculptors, I think it's just whatever materials you have on hand, you find a way to make it work. Also a business owner. I own Black Dog Metal Arts with my husband, Danny. And then I also own Radish Kitchen, which is the only dedicated vegan cafe, now transitioning to restaurant in the Peoria, Illinois area. I also have 3 cats and a dog. I want to plug my babies in there. That's it. Yeah. So there's the spark notes of Jam Rohr.
Fantastic. What a great place to start. And so we're going to start with formative years and, any introductions that you had into, I like to kind of leave it open and you pick what you think actually had an impact and kind of has come full circle, but it could be art, it could be tool usage, it could be manual labor, it could be stamina, it could be a lot of things. And so does anything in your childhood really stick out that you think maybe is impacting your life in a positive way?
Oh yeah, I think a lot of things. I'll say like my first dream like career that I could remember is I wanted to be a mechanic. I think part of it stems from I'm one of those kids that like, growing up when you have to like move chairs to the assembly and the teacher's like, I need some strong boys. And I'll be like, oh, well, screw that. I'm as strong as the boys. And then I go move 500 chairs, like just unnecessarily. So I think like that kind of kept going until I got to high school. And I was like, being a mechanic would be really great. I just like working with tools. I like fixing things. There's nothing more rewarding than being like, I have no idea why this is broken, and just kind of start messing around with things, and now it works. And it's just, that was always fun. I started like learning how to work on vehicles with my dad. We used to be in communication, and I helped rebuild a couple of engines on a Camaro with him, which was fun. And then once I got a car one time that didn't run, and I took a couple weeks just working on it between jobs, and I got it working, and I was like, okay, that was super great. I love that. So I feel like that was kind of part of the formative years, because when I got to college, I originally wanted to do communication because I was like, oh, that's probably like very vague and I could probably get a good job. But then I found out, oh, you got to pick like what you want to do with that. And I have no idea. So then I did like psychology and philosophy for a while, didn't know. And I finally was just like, art has always been great. Did art in high school, and like did like this independent art class where we got to like paint a mural, because you were like not like above anyone or better than anyone, but just like more involved in the arts than other people maybe in high school were. So I felt like, well, let me explore art some more. And I was a painter with a minor in psychology. But then when I realized like actually sculpture is kind of much more my speed, because I get to bring back in all of those tools I was working with when I was trying to become a mechanic. And I also don't have that like toxic masculinity. I mean, it's still kind of, it's always there, but it wasn't like so much so as it was when trying to be a mechanic as it is like when you're in more of a progressive environment with the arts in a
Yeah.
college. So yeah, I guess those are kind of the formative years, and just always like my mom being amazing and supportive of anything I ever wanted to do. She's like, great, do it, great, do it, great. That's weird, but great.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that was always like nice and helping me like have the confidence to move forward in whatever I wanted to explore for a while. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So to then kind of carry on with the storyline. So you go to college. So you're in college for painting and what you immediately said, and I immediately
Oh
forgot
yeah.
because
I did painting. So there was a point where I wanted to do psychology as my major.
uh-huh.
And then my aunt is a psychologist. Well, she retired now. But I talked to her about it, and she's like, oh, well, you get your doctorate, it's 8 years of school. And I was like, 8 years of school? I
Ugh.
don't want to go to school for 8 years. And you know what I did? I went to school for 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, I decided I was going to major in painting, and I got a minor in psychology because I wanted to do art therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really picked painting not because I wanted to be a painter, but because Mike Willie from Illinois State University was my professor, and he was amazing. He's the director of the School of Art and Design now, and he's like the perfect fit for the role. I really wanted to work with him. And I always loved his classes, so I just majored in painting so I could work with Mike Willie more directly. So,
And so then where did the sculpture come
oh
in?
yeah. So it was my last semester at Illinois State, and
Okay.
I was still like doing this painting minor in psych, and I was going to start applying for schools for art therapy because I was about to graduate. Then I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to do art therapy. That sounds like very draining in a way that isn't like, I feel like I can do something better for others and also something fulfilling to me in a different way. And I've always been really like involved in the community wherever I lived. Like I grew up going to punk shows and booking shows and playing those shows. And when I was in college, I was booking them at my house and like doing all of that. And I wanted to like still do that kind of DIY thing and be collaborative. And I felt like art therapy wasn't that, but I didn't know what I could do. So I just started applying to MFA programs, and I didn't even like, I don't know. I just felt like that was the next step, because that's kind of what academia leads you to believe is like, well, you don't know it. Well, you could teach or just get an MFA, and it's not a bad idea. So I was applying for programs, and Mike Willie called me over winter break. Like, we're on break. And he was like, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want it to be as offensive as it's going to sound, but are you ready for an MFA? And I was like, no, I am not ready. I'm just like, I know I'm not ready. I'm not going to lie to you. I just don't know what to do. And he was like, okay, like, I know. So he told me about this 1-year master's program at Eastern Illinois University. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically a boot camp for an MFA, which it is, and it rules. And I can't recommend it enough for people who are leaving school and don't know what to do next.
Okay.
Even if you don't want to go for an MFA, it's like a really nice, intense program with really good people and great facilities. Um, and Chris Kaler, who's Mike's good friend, was running the program at the time. So he put me in contact with him, and I kind of talked to Chris Kaler about it and was like, yeah, this sounds like a good move for me. So I applied and I got in, which is also where I met Danny.
Yeah.
Danny and I met at Eastern, and Danny was a sculptor, and I was doing like sculptural paintings at the time. My uncle has a painting business, so I can get free latex paint, because he'll be like, I can't paint a house with this, it's going bad, so I'll go get it. And I was doing like poured paintings that I would pull up and then cut apart and sew together and like make these forms, and was just kind of exploring sculptural painting and doing like knit forms around them and stuff like that. And Danny was doing a lot of these like very geometric forms that were like welded steel forms, and he might like throw a balloon filled with paint at them and like
Uh-huh.
have this like mix of like organic and like more structural forms that were really interesting. And I just remember telling him, like, I need this form to do this, but I don't know how to do that. He was like, well, you should weld. And I was like, I should weld. So Danny actually taught me how to MIG weld. And then while we were in there, Matt Boonstra, who ran the sculptural facilities, was like, oh, you should learn how to TIG weld. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll learn everything you want to teach me. So I learned how to TIG weld, which I picked up on really quick. And then I learned like oxyacetylene, and then I learned stick. Like I learned everything he could teach. And I had already done also at Illinois State. I did some sculptural things, like we had a glass blowing facility with glass everything. So I took all of the glass classes that were available, and then I did all the woodworking and small metals classes that were available there too. So I
Mm-hmm.
already had that under my belt too. So it made sense that the one thing that was kind of lacking was just knowing how to do like metal art.
Mm-hmm.
So Danny kind of introduced me into that, and I just kept going with it. And then Danny did an aluminum casting at Eastern first, and I was like, oh, this is a really cool process. I want to know more about that too. So um, then, yeah, we just kind of kept going with sculpture, and then we got into Southern Illinois University together, and we got a dog as celebration for getting into grad school together. We got Eddie. Which is the black dog for the Black Dog Metal Arts, because he's a
Yeah.
pit lab mix and he's such a good boy.
He is.
But anyway, so yeah, then we got into Carbondale together, and then like during that 1-year masters, that's when I started transitioning from like I wouldn't call myself a painter anymore. I'd call myself a sculptor, because I'm now doing things like with many more materials and exploring things in the realm, and I'm trying to pull them off the wall into my space and thinking about things in the round. Because for a while I was like, well, where's the line? Does it matter? Like, does it matter what I call myself? I'm just going to make art and go with it. But, for academia purposes, I was like, oh, I'm a sculptor. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I kind of think that it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah, it
what
really
you
doesn't.
want and identify as. Like,
Hmm.
you know, I think that people are allowed to pick their own titles and, because it's like somebody might call me a blacksmith just because they're ill-informed and they think that I cast metal swords. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
it's much better if we just let people identify themselves and then
Hmm.
listen to
Yeah.
how they want to be described. And
Yeah.
yes. So then you didn't pour anything at Eastern and then, or did you?
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I did not. Yeah, that's correct. I didn't pour any metal. I
I
just
mean,
did like welding and fabrication mostly, and like woodworking and stuff. But Danny poured aluminum once, and we were like, oh, that was cool. And
yeah.
then the sculpture class, I think they poured bronze, and we got to watch, and that was cool. And then it wasn't until we got to Carbondale that we
Yeah.
started like dumping metal all the time, as often as they would let us, at
Yeah.
least I'd say. Yeah.
So I know that Carbondale has ceramic shell. You learned ceramic shell at Carbondale?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I know at Eastern, Matt Boonstra has a setup to do ceramic shell too, but I think just Carbondale, like there's a dedicated room for shell and Carbondale. And there's like the other open area for sand molds. And then there's like a setup wax room. They just have like a bigger facility, more equipped for foundry work in that capacity, which I think Boonstra has an interest in doing all of that too. But the facilities at Eastern are like much more, there's like a big area for woodworking and then like fabrication. And then there's like a furnace also in the back. So like you could do it all there too. Um, but yeah, I think Carbondale is just much more focused on foundry because the wood area is like a little, there's like a table saw and a miter saw. Yeah.
And also, I think that having like the, I don't know how to, I don't want to say it's like a satellite building because it's still on campus. It's just the sculpture area and the grad student studios. Is that right? Are just
Hmm.
not in what you would consider the main art and design building that's like in the
At
main campus.
Carbondale.
Yeah,
Oh, there's several. So there was like, oh, I can't remember the name of like any of the buildings, but me
it's
and
fine.
Danny, our building was at the glove factory. Our
Hmm.
studios were at the glove factory where there's like sculpture downstairs, and then upstairs there was painting and drawing grad
Hmm.
studios, and then there was the oh shoot, Danny worked there. What was
There's a
the
gallery.
surplus gallery? That's what it
Yes.
was called. Danny was the director for a while there.
Hmm.
And like I ran the visiting artist program out of there too. But then there was also the foundry where a couple people had grad studios. And
Yep.
then there was also Polium where there was like ceramics and glass and
Okay.
blacksmithing. Yeah. So there was like several, and they weren't all connected. Actually, when me and Danny got there, we had orientation and all the grads went out to drink at this bar called the Cellar. And one of them was like the third year grad, Brandon Smith, that we still talk to. He was like, this never happens. Like, we never all get together. And me and
Huh.
Danny were like, well, too bad, we're all going to get together because we're going to make it happen. So we
Yeah.
just had people come to our house all the time, and we'd have parties and potlucks and dinners and just like try to make it more of a community thing, so that because the studios are all in separate buildings, like people weren't really collaborating and hanging out. We were like, well, just because you're there doesn't mean we can't talk and be friends. So we
Yeah.
just tried to bring people together. Yeah, it was great. I had a good time in Carbondale.
Yeah. And so that was the first time that you saw iron. So you knew that there
Hmm.
was going to be an iron pour?
Yeah, actually,
I mean, like,
we
well, duh, I don't know. I'm trying to set you up to start talking about like maybe the first thing that you cast or like your first was it sand molds or shell molds that you made for that iron pour?
I
Because I
couldn't.
can't remember.
Yeah, you were there.
Mhm.
You were at our very first iron pour.
Danny also mentioned that I'm just like an extrovert though, that I came up to you guys and was like, "Do you guys have any questions?" But
Hmm.
I feel like
Yeah, and
I
we're like,
had
we don't know anything. Please tell us everything. Yeah, you were like, it was you and Charlie Scott that was in. Charlie was in the program with us.
right.
And I love Charlie. We
Thank
talked to
God for
him like,
Charlie.
I know he
Like
was amazing. He is
I
amazing. He still exists. He's
I
just
he still exists. I don't know if he'll let me interview him, but he might. I'm gonna, we'll leave that open. But
yeah,
he's like one of my favorite he's like one of my favorite people to be on a ladle with
yeah.
because it's like dancing. It's just like
Yeah,
I just
everything's gonna be okay if Charlie's at the pour.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
so calm.
He'll help you like through hell and high water is like what I
Yeah,
feel like. And
yeah.
I remember, so he was a first year and you guys were both first years.
Hmm.
And I guess that at that pour, because it's interesting, you roll up to an iron pour, and I'd never poured at Carbondale before that time,
Hmm.
and yeah, let's just start from there, your first iron pour,
Hmm.
and go from there. Just where did you go next? What did you think?
Yeah, so first iron pour, I think I was doing the pumpkins at the time. So those were shells. Um, because I got these, like I did some in sand too, and they were also beautiful, and I still got like fabulous texture in them. But yeah, I think it was just more of I wanted to learn the process of shell. Oh, I was casting my knitting at the time. I like knit some baskets and then just sealed them in wax and then cast them in shell too. And those turned out great. I don't know where they are now. I probably melted them down or something because they were kind of thin. Doesn't matter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I did shell for sure. And I know I did some sand molds, but I mostly did shell because I wanted to learn the process. So that was fun. Um, and then, yeah, I did just because we had the facilities to do so. I did some like aluminum and a lot of bronze, but I wanted to pour iron all the time. And in Carbondale, they would say, well, you have to have at least 1,500 pounds to be able to pour iron.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating because not like everybody else wanted to pour too, but I like for my thesis, I made this whole body of work that was like mostly iron because the semester before we didn't meet the 1,500, so we didn't get to pour, and it really like put me in a tight spot because I needed to pour that work. So I think we ended up going to Memphis or something, and I poured it, or Trails. We went somewhere, and I got it poured elsewhere. But it was frustrating to not be able to do it where you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
like of debt to So, and I was the foundry tech at the time, so like was making molds and had all like I knew what we could do, and I knew we had it, and we had a smaller furnace that me and Danny fixed up so we could run it, so we didn't have to have the 1,500 pounds. We could just do like a little pour. So then when it was thesis time, the semester before thesis, we were going around asking everybody, all right, how much iron you got? How much you got? And it went like Charlie had like 60 pounds, Danny had like 100 pounds, Ayako had a few, and then like a couple of the other people earlier on the program had some. And we weren't anywhere near 1,500 pounds. And then it gets to me and they're like, Jam, what do you got? And I was like, 1,300 pounds.
All
And they
right.
were like, oh, okay. And I was like, we're going to pour.
Yeah.
So we had the pour because I started my research on these Fisk metallic burial cases, which are these like cast
Right.
iron coffins. So I was
Yeah.
starting the research on those then. And one of the pieces I made was a huge cast iron door that later, because I knew our furnace wasn't going to tap enough to be able to fill the mold, but I wanted
Mm-hmm.
it to at least get as much as possible. Then I had a backup plan where I just incorporated like some bronze and steel to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really cool. But yeah, I had a bunch of pumpkins, and I had this piece about Danny, and I remember what else? Oh, a bunch of plumb bobs, and just like a ton. It was like all iron. So that was great. I remember just breaking iron forever and like having such a blast with that hunt for the tubs of radiators and sinks, just like on Craigslist all the time, like tubs, give me the tubs. Me and Danny drove to Decatur, Illinois to get this tub out of this like it was like a second floor of this house that was about to be torn down,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
we were like, oh, we can't carry this down the staircase. The stairs are gonna like break or something. Like it
Yeah.
was bad. So we asked the guy, could we just break it up here and then take it down in pieces? And he was like, I guess. And we're like, we don't want it for the tub. We just want the iron. So we just like broke it up there and took it down in sections, and it was perfect. But yeah, that was also one time we asked you filmed something for us, I think. And as payment, I was like, we'll give you a bucket of broken iron. And you were like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
You
funny
I
that that's like gold to
that was
people in the iron
yeah.
community. But yeah.
I don't know how it came up, but it was something like, oh, well, at fire, we'll bring up 100 pounds, a bucket of 100 pounds of iron broken for you. And I was like, ding, 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 you're good. And yeah, I feel like that 100 pounds probably saved my sanity because it's 100 pounds less that I had to break in the
Yeah.
Memphis heat. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to offer that to someone. I think it was one of the Bradley students or something, because it was someone like we were going to pour with, but they were really new and hadn't done it before. And I remember being like, I'll give you a bucket of broken iron. They were like, no, what am I? No, I've got iron. And I was like, oh,
Never
okay, well,
mind.
I'll keep it. If you're
Yeah.
not going to like be super thrilled about this bucket of broken, I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's so it's definitely currency, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's for us. It's a secret iron currency.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So friggin', I feel like we're off of the thread
Oh,
of
yeah.
which is fine. I don't know. So you want to keep talking about Carbondale at all? And like, I mean, one thing that I always like to talk about with artists is why iron, because I
Hmm.
know if I say to everybody, what do you love most about pouring iron? Everybody says the community.
Oh, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Hands down. That's why on the questionnaire, you might not notice this, but there's a little joke for myself. What do you love most about the iron casting process? Everybody says the community. And so
Hmm.
then what do you love second most
Yes.
about the iron community? That's why, because sometimes we need variety in answers.
Yeah.
And so, I think that a lot of schools will actually really push students to justify, why are you casting this in iron? Why not bronze and aluminum? I don't want to push as hard as like that, because I
Hmm.
obviously like the fact that you're casting iron, but
Yeah.
what about iron as the material benefits, like how does it benefit your work?
Oh, yeah. Well, I spoke on a whole iron and materiality panel at the International Conference in Scranton, like about there's like 3 points that I always, well, now four, that I talk about when I talk about like why I use iron.
Mhm.
And that was awesome. That was like right after grad school. So it was like a really great like line on the resume and great networking experience. And just like I love public speaking. It's so much fun. Danny too. Danny's so good at it. It like makes me laugh how good he is at it.
It's really
Um,
good.
but anyway, so yeah, the reasons I use iron. Well, like one is of course like community. Yeah, like it's something that, I mean, I guess there is a way to do it by yourself, but really like in a practical sense and the way we all do it, like why would you anyway? Like you can't do it alone and you have to have trust in what everyone else is doing. And something that I loved when we poured iron in grad school because it was like no one can micromanage anybody. Everybody is like, all right, Ayako's going to run charges. Charlie runs the furnace. Me and Danny run the floor or whatever it is that day. Like everyone has their big job they're in charge of. And then everybody, you just go to that person if you're on that section of the team.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go over to charges and be like, hey, Ayako, you're not doing it right. Like that's not efficient and not practical in any way. So like one, it's having trust in the community and like knowing that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, but also you're contributing to that as well. And it's such a great way to like meet people and do this really weird hard thing together that's like super dangerous, but it's just like the best bonding.
It is. It
And
really
then
is.
everybody always hugs afterwards, and
Yeah.
then if you're at trails everybody gives you a beer afterwards. I love
Yeah.
that. Like there's no beer better than after an iron pour.
No,
It's just
there's
the
not.
best. So but
There's
yeah, so
hands
I
down
love,
not.
yeah, it's like the most
There's something about
refreshing
it.
thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like our like taste buds have been like, I don't know, the fuel coke and like all the propane
Yeah,
from it's
cleans
like
it all
it's
out.
just, yeah, the molten iron feet, like, yeah, there's just something about it. But anyways, so you were talking about 4 points, 3 points, 4 points, one for the
Oh yeah.
community.
Okay, so I give this lecture um that I gave it at Illinois State after when I was teaching there. And my friend was the curator at the time, Jessica Bingham, who runs Project 1612. I'm going to give that a plug here. Here in Peoria, it's a residency for artists, and Radish Kitchen donates meals for artists. And Big Picture Peoria, which is who we poured for in 2019, they're a nonprofit here in Peoria. Peoria is a great place for the arts, but Big Picture sponsors Project 1612 as well. So anyway, Jessica Bingham was the curator at Illinois State at the time. So she organized this talk that I could give for students and faculty and stuff. And at the time, I think I called it Frail But Never Weak. And I was just talking about different points of iron from my work, but also my research and also like the things that I'm interested in about iron. So I talk about like iron as a life force, how it's like in the crust of the earth, it's in our blood, it's what unites us, it's what keeps us alive, but also like on a biological standpoint, but also kind of historically throughout history, it's like what has also brought people together and what has also like created this industrial world as we know it today. Um, and then I talk about like iron in space, because there's this really fun, I love talking about this, how iron is like what causes the supernova explosions that can create black holes, because it produces these endothermic reactions where all the other elements before iron that are in space colliding and making this like energy for a sun or for a star are doing exothermic reactions. So they explode and they give off energy and they give off energy, but iron gets in there. And when things are running into iron, it's retaining energy and pulling in the energy and not giving back in this way. So then if that continues to happen too much, then there's this huge explosion that can cause a black hole. So iron is kind of like the start of like life as we know it from that theory, because it was theorized that that could be what had caused like the Big Bang. It's just like iron's hand in that sort of reactionary
Yeah.
thing. So I love that. And then also I talk about iron and folklore. So that being said, everything I just said about iron being like endothermic reactions. So iron has been believed throughout history to ward off or contain spirits. So a lot of people used to put like an iron knife under their doormat so that these like spirits and negative energies could not get into their homes. Also, horseshoes. So
Yeah.
depending on who you ask, sometimes a horseshoe facing up holds in the good luck, but a horseshoe laying down pours the good luck onto the person walking
Oh.
underneath it.
Uh-huh.
So it's like nice both ways.
Yeah.
But so if iron is believed to ward off or contain spirits, if we bring in, this is my own theory, if we
Yeah.
bring in this idea about iron creates these endothermic reactions, well, if a spirit is energy, then a spirit is trying to, you know, make its way through whatever, and maybe it's like transferring through different elements to navigate around throughout the world, then it hits iron and it's just this endothermic reaction, so it sucks up the spirit, so the spirit can't exist anymore or can't pass through it or can't continue to move and navigate through, which I think is really fun and fascinating.
Yeah, that is a really
Um,
interesting like theory, and like I don't even know what to call it. Like
like a
I don't want to.
speculation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was thinking like story. Like, you
Yeah.
know, kind of like you're creating your personal type of lore based on what you know about the scientific properties of iron,
Hmm.
and also these like folklore,
Yeah.
um like a folklore lens, and then
Hmm.
mashing the two together. I think
Hmm.
that that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Something Danny.
it can play into like your art theory of your body's work.
Hmm. Yeah, something Danny's been wanting to make for a while is a Ouija board cast in iron, because people like
Oh,
use Ouija
dang.
boards to like bring in spirits and
We're gonna cut that out. I'm not gonna cut it out. That's such a good idea.
yeah,
It's got to be on the record now. If anybody
yeah,
else does it before Danny,
you
we'll
ripped off
come for
Danny
you.
Rohr.
We'll
Yeah,
come for you.
yeah. So Danny wants to do it because I'm always talking about
Reserved
it.
for Danny only. Okay, anyways, go
He
ahead.
wants to talk about like iron wards off or contains spirits. Well, if a Ouija board is supposed to summon and communicate with the dead or spirits, then what happens if you have one cast in iron and the spirits try to come and they're like, what the hell? We can't get past this iron. We're trying. Like, you know, like
Or
what would it be?
maybe a force will choose to inhabit that.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
that
here
could be
for
cool.
all of these theories.
Yeah.
All of it. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Like the board and the little, I don't know what's
Planchette.
with a P or with a B?
P.
With a planchette.
Uh-huh.
That little thing. So point 4 about iron and materiality.
Oh, okay. So I kind of like touched on them all really quickly with all of
Oh,
the talk, but like, yeah. So I often like with my own work, I talk about iron kind of in all of those ways,
Yeah.
like it being something that unites all of us as a life force, and is something that is relatable, that we can all come back to, but then also like the folklore of iron, and also like iron in space and from like a scientific
Hmm.
standpoint, but then also like the community aspect in the way that it really does like bring people together. And pouring iron isn't really something that you can do on your own, and how you have to trust everybody else that's on the pour,
Yeah.
um, even if they're new, like, because it's still like if you're running charges and somebody wants to come pour a ladle for the first time, you're not going to go run over there and be like, you're doing this wrong, blah blah blah. You're going to trust the person that's
Yeah.
running the floor has like talked to that person and watched them and gotten them up to speed, or somebody's
Yeah.
follow, like, just
Yeah.
doing what they're supposed to do. So yeah, I think like pouring iron unites people in a way that like nothing else I have experienced
Yeah.
has. It's also this like kind of like alternative thing, which I think is part of what drew me to it too, with like growing up in like the punk and DIY scene and being like, I want to have a show, or I want to play a show, or I want to go on tour. So I'm just going to make it happen with the things that are in my power, which what is always in my power is like the community, which is bigger than me, that I'm a part of too. So I can be like, hey, I want to like book this band, but they're not going to come to Peoria to play just a show that I'm like, hey, come play for me. Like I need to like book other bands and figure out logistics. Where are they staying? How long are they here? Where are they coming from? What days at work are we going to, how much are we going to pay them? So what does it cost at the door? Where are they going to play? Do they have the insurance we're supposed to have? Like, how do I promote it? Do I do flyers? Now you can do social media, like all of those things. It's the same exact thing as when I'm like putting together an iron pour or
Yeah.
figuring out logistics of getting to a pour. But it's also like this weird thing that like everybody is very passionate about, like this DIY punk scene, but also this iron community. Like it's pretty, like when I think about vacation, like we don't have money. We still don't have money.
Yeah.
And like the way that we go on vacation is go to an iron
Yeah.
pour and
Yeah.
stay with a friend on their couch, and we
Yeah.
pour iron and maybe have a cool dinner somewhere.
Yeah.
And like that's vacation.
Yeah.
Like we
I'm the
don't get to
same.
like go fly somewhere really cool, though I would love to do that. I would love to fly somewhere cool and pour iron.
Yeah.
But one day when we are millionaires,
Oh yeah.
when I said when,
Oh
we're
yes.
gonna
Get that out into the universe. Just
yeah,
get it
speak
out
it
there.
into
When?
existence. But yeah, like I want to be able to do cool stuff like that. So we just that's our vacation. It's just driving around and dumping iron with our friends and then making new friends while we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I
It
love
really is. It
it.
really, I mean, because I'm the same way. It's like I do, a lot of times I'll be in Memphis or go to Birmingham or,
Mhm.
this next fall, I'm going to go vacation in South Dakota at the Western. Woo.
Ooh.
Have you ever been to South Dakota? I ain't never been to South Dakota.
No, but
I,
I want to go.
I,
When is it? Do you know yet? I don't know
I
if the dates have
do.
been released.
They have. So the Western Conference is in Vermilion, South Dakota, and it's October 5th through the 8th or 9th. I have it through the 9th, but the 9th is the Sunday I'll be probably driving home. And then the 10th of October is the Indigenous Peoples Day,
Okay.
which some people may have off from work. I won't, but it's good that it might help some people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you
But
said 5th through the 9th.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm catering a wedding on the 8th, but I'll figure it out. Okay.
yeah. Lots of stuff. I mean, that's the thing. I'm already talking about the national conference at SLOSS
Mhm.
because I'm trying to get people to like realize like it's coming up. It's the first
It
time that
is.
it's going
It's
to
really
be
like
in person. The sooner people can get it on the calendar, the less they're going to be scheduling weddings and like, hey, my
mhm.
best friend, maybe you can have your baby shower the week after, like,
Yeah.
because stuff happens, stuff
Mhm.
comes up. But if I have that blocked away on my calendar, I'm more likely to, you know, deflect other, I can't think of the word.
Commitments.
engagement. Yeah, other commitments, other
Yeah, yeah.
commitments, other engagements. Um, okay. Well, so we like kind of ran through. Do you want to talk about like we've kind of run through a lot of the questions of we talked about why you use the material in your artistic expression, which I love. And yeah, do you want to talk about like transition from grad school to adult
Mhm.
LLC owner?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so let's see. We graduated in 2018. Really?
Yeah.
Something like, yeah, that's right. Okay. Because the international, okay. So Danny and I were graduating with our MFAs in sculpture in May of 2018. And my sister had just had a baby, and it was my first niece. And now I have a niece and a nephew, and I love them so much. And I wanted to like be there to see
Yeah.
her and like be really involved in her life and like be I just wanted to be around her all the time. So
Yeah.
when we were graduating, we were both applying for jobs everywhere, and I was just like, "What if we just like, this is frustrating and exhausting. This like trying to find a job and like explain to people why we can be a huge asset
Yeah.
because yeah, we have the skill, but on paper it's like, oh, well, you're young and you're fresh out of school and you don't have all this teaching experience, though you have
Yeah.
some, though I like we're both very good at teaching
Yeah.
because we know what we're talking about and we care about our students and we're very good at communicating to be like, you can relate to us in a way, but also here's this boundary of I know when to be like, yeah, you can't pull that. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of full of shit. And like, I'm happy to be both.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't translate on a resume.
No.
And it was just, we were both like fed up and exhausted with like all the academia, just everything. And I was like, what if we didn't like just buy into this? Like, I have an MFA, so I need to get a job teaching. Like, what are
Yeah.
other things we can do? Because one of my problems with like academia, even though I did get to teach and I loved teaching so much, I still
Yeah.
love it. I hope I get to teach again
You will.
someday. But like with grad school, especially, nobody teaches you how to be successful outside of school. They just teach you how to be a good student and how to be successful in this like master's program. But
Yeah.
then what do you do when you graduate? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I know you have to have this resume and you have to make connections and you have to build these ties, but like nobody's kind of pushing that and guiding that. They're just like, come here, make your work and graduate, which is also important too. But I was like, I don't I see that as a big problem and I don't really want to be a part of it. I think I can
Hmm.
do much more contributing to my community as a whole. So I remember I was driving to Carbondale from Peoria before we graduated and I called Danny and I was like, what if we like did start a foundry? Like, what if we just, because we kind of talked about it like over a beer in the yard a few times, like, well, we just start our own foundry. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be great, but who has millions of dollars?
Yeah.
And I was just like, what if we did? And he's like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
Danny always, yeah, totally. We'll figure it out. That's like,
He's like, I'll flap your
ex-
coattails.
yeah, he always says, if
I
somebody tries to like somebody I've never met or even talked to or heard of suddenly is like, oh my God, I'm a huge fan. We should work together. I'm like, well, in what way? Or like, what are you going to do to help make this happen? Because it sounds like you're trying to ask me to do the group project for everyone and we all get an A. And Danny will always say, them coattails is full. And he'll say, I'm making them
Oh.
flap though.
I loved
Great.
it when he said that. I was
He's
just,
so great.
I love it.
But we work well together. We're both like doing a lot and we just know each other's role and what we
Yeah.
both excel at, and that's
Yeah.
why we're like a great team. But anyway, yeah, we were like, what if we just started our own foundry? And I was like, we should move to Peoria. There's this I Buy Art campaign. There's like first Friday, third Thursday, second Thursday, like all these like arts events and festivals that are like really focused on crafts, which is also great. But there's like a lot of gallery spaces, there's residencies, like there's a lot of art happening in Peoria. And like people care about art deeply there. And it's not just like well, this is overpriced and I just want it for my dentist office, which is also like, yeah, I have art in a dentist office. That's great. But like people really are like interested in what you're doing and want to know more and want to know how to help you. So Danny's like, okay, yeah, let's move to Peoria. So we moved to Peoria. And right when we get there, I was working at my mom's shirt shop at the
Uh-huh.
time, full time. And then 2 days before the semester started, I got a call from Illinois Central College to ask if I could teach their Art 110 classes. And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out because I need it because I wanted to teach and I wanted to get my foot in the door. And that's the only way I saw at the time I could do it.
Yeah.
So I did, which was horrible because it was 2 days before. So I had 2 days to write an entire semester of curriculum and
Yeah.
read this whole book that I'm supposed to teach out of and do all this stuff. It was very stressful and exhausting, but I'm really glad I did it. And I
Yeah.
loved teaching at ICC, which then I became the curator later. But like while
Hmm.
that was happening, Danny was teaching at Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau. Um, so we were apart for a semester. And while he was gone, I was like starting to try to make connections around Peoria. And at the time, we have Arts Partners here, which is like a platform. It's run by Jen Gordon, who's amazing. And it's basically like how to keep people in the know about the arts and highlight things happening in the arts community.
Hmm.
Like she'll do this show on NPR called Out and About, where she just interviews an artist about an event that's coming up this weekend, or like interviews the theater about things. It's really awesome. And they do like this Sky Art Peoria campaign with billboards throughout the city. So like your art's on a billboard, and all of that. So anyway, Arts Partners used to have these events called monthlies in the morning. And it would be once a month, artists could come to these meetings and it would just be like people talking about their organization or their own art or their group or whatever. It's just like a handful of people. And I saw those and I was like, I'm just going to go and start talking about Black Dog. And I think we had like just like incorporated the business. We didn't even have
Hmm.
space or like equipment
Hmm.
yet. I just thought like, well, if we incorporate it, we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we did all the legal stuff first and then started trying to like get things moving forward. So I went to the monthlies in the mornings meetings. That's how I met a lot of people. And everybody in Peoria just like goes real hard about what they're like, I'm showing up, I'm promoting it. I can't wait for this thing you're doing. Like everybody's just amped. And it's not just us, like it's everybody. And I love it. So yeah, we just started like meeting people and I was trying to like build a network while Danny was in school so that when he was teaching, so that when he comes back, I can like introduce him to everyone and we can like get the ball rolling on a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I really feel like something that I learned that, you don't get taught in school and you shouldn't necessarily, like, it's not something that necessarily needs to be taught, but just like what in my experience with grad school, me and Danny had a much better time first off just building community
Hmm.
and meeting everybody and collaborating as much as we can because we like people, but also like now we know all these people and all these people know us and we can help each other, like people that live all over the world.
Yeah.
um, and then getting to Peoria, I was like, I want to be here because I grew up here and my
Yeah.
family's here. I'm close with my mom's side, but like I also this Peoria is just unlike everywhere else because like, yeah, like I said, everybody just wants to know how they can show up and help you out. And
Hmm.
it's just very unique in that way. Like I've never lived anywhere with a community like this.
Hmm.
So
Going to visit there too, I feel it. Like I felt that, so I've been up for two pours, the big picture Peoria one, and then the one that was your wedding pour, which
yeah.
it's not your wedding pour. It just happened to be after your
Yeah, that
wedding.
was our honeymoon, was just
Yeah.
pouring iron. Yeah.
But that was the female run pour. And there is something about the community. They're all, you know, wanting to know what's going on, wanting to watch, wanting to get scratch blocks. And I feel like I feel like there was a lot of people in the all female pour that were from Peoria that had never
Mhm.
poured before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing it now too. Like I'm pushing anytime I meet people, I'm like, oh, we do I'm a metal artist and sculptor, blah, blah, blah. We do iron pours. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Or, oh, I've seen that. I've always wanted to do that. I'm like, oh, good. You should. Next
Yep.
time we pour, you're going to come.
And so then, let's see. So we poured at your place in November, and then it was
Mhm.
like, everybody has Thanksgiving, like November and December, crazy busy. Everybody's got Thanksgiving, the winter holidays, all of that.
Mhm.
And also a lot of times it's too really cold to have a pour, or like it's in
Mhm.
between semesters. So like schools don't really do it. Typically there's not any iron until maybe like February or something. But
Mhm.
then it's 2020 in March and the pandemic hits and nobody's having any iron pours. So a lot of people, and Danny brought this up in his interview, that a lot of people, that iron pour was one of the last iron pours that they went to before the pandemic shut us
Mhm.
down I didn't pour iron for 2 whole years, like
Yeah.
almost exactly.
Yeah. Well, we poured in Detroit with
Uh-huh.
Jay in February of 2020. And
Yeah.
then I
Before
went
it hit the
to,
fan.
yeah, I was in New York with my cousin Becca because I
Oh,
was going to try to curate an exhibition with the Fisk metallic burial cases because I was collaborating with Scott Warrenash, who's an archaeologist that
uh-huh.
studies them. And there's PBS documentary about him. So I reached out to him to see if we could ever like work together, thinking he would just like, I was like, he's probably never going to reply to me. Or maybe he's like, maybe this is old. I don't know. And he
Yeah.
replied and he was like, oh, I've always wanted to know how they're made. And I was like, oh, I can tell you that.
That's
I want to know what
great.
you know. So we
Yeah.
were like, I was going to do this exhibition with him. And he was going to give a lecture about like his research. And then I was going to talk about mine and where. So I was like looking at places in New York. And I thought the easiest way to do that is like, yeah, reach out to people, but also like just go and
Yeah.
try to like go meet galleries and places that this could be like could hold this exhibition. So I wanted it to be several exhibitions as like one big thing. So
Mhm.
anyway, we went and we had planned the trip a long time ago. And
Yeah.
then we were in New York the week before everything shut down.
In
Like,
March.
yeah.
Wow.
Like I
Oh my.
remember we were there and nobody was masking yet because no one knew what it
Yeah.
was yet, but all the hand sanitizer was gone and like all the gloves were gone and the toilet paper. It was like that time when people were starting to be like, oh, wash your hands a lot. So I remember bringing napkins and we'd had to ride the train. I would like put napkins on the poles because I couldn't get
Yeah.
hand sanitizer. So, but yeah, we were there right before the shutdown. And then I came home and we were on spring break. So I was teaching at Illinois State at the time.
Yeah.
And we were on spring break and then we were supposed to come back. And they were like, actually, we're going to do another week because we don't know what this is or what to do. And I was
Yeah.
teaching 3D foundations and I had to teach it online. And I was like, how?
I
I
know.
I guess I'll try. And I did
Yeah.
it and I think it went okay. But like, I definitely feel like everyone in well, I taught drawing online too, and that was also kind of weird because it's hard to give feedback when I can't just like
Yeah.
point and be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but anyway, yeah, so we poured in February 2020
Mhm.
and then that was it. And then we didn't
Yeah.
pour again until last June. We
Mhm.
poured in North Carolina and that was so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, that was it. It was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love pouring.
I know. I know. I felt like I was being starved. But, and I've talked about it with different guests on the show too. It's like there are some silver linings. There were some things that developed quicker that maybe, I got a lot better at editing, and I
Mhm.
think it's kind of a gift that I was able to um focus on editing and not as much on going traveling, because
Mhm.
it's kind of, there is like a bandwidth issue with some of this
Yeah.
stuff, and so I was able to focus on getting better at editing, and I think that now the podcast is definitely benefiting because I can cut it
Yeah.
together in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
So but I remember, because we always stayed pretty close in touch throughout like every month or every 2 to 3 months, we would
Uh-huh.
do a video call check in,
Yeah.
and you were like, so I started making meals for my friend.
Yeah, my friend Jackie Music that I mentioned. She's a painter. She's amazing. I love Jackie. I love everybody I've met in Peoria. But yeah, so I'm vegan, and I went vegan because I have endometriosis, which is I get asked about a lot. It's basically like scar tissue building up on my organs, and it hurts a lot. It's very painful. And I didn't have health insurance, and I'm poor, and I still have no money. So I kept Googling like what helps if I can't go to the doctor and I can't get surgery and I can't get medicine, like what can I do? And I kept reading whole food plant-based diet will help. And I thought it can't hurt. So I just tried like first just cutting out red meat, which surprisingly wasn't that hard for me. Like I thought it would be because I was always a like, it's my birthday, I'm gonna have a steak person, or like I'm making spaghetti, I'm gonna load it up with ground beef
Yeah.
person.
I
So
was always a bacon. Like,
oh
we're
yeah.
going camping, you have to have bacon.
Yeah,
I like
bacon and
forget the jugs of
pancakes.
water. Yeah, I was always like that.
Hmm.
And I actually now I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but I'm very close. Like it's like people think that I am because I order it so rarely and we never
Hmm.
buy it. So it's like I'm on the same stream, I feel like, as you are. And I feel like I
Yeah.
remember when you did the switch too, when you
Yeah.
decided.
First I like tried vegetarian. Wasn't that hard, surprisingly,
Mhm.
but I think it was also the motivation of knowing I'm doing it because I'm in pain. And it's
Yeah.
easier than being like, I want to just be better. Like I'm like, wow, I hurt less. So it's easier to
Mhm.
stay on it. But
Yeah.
the hard thing was cheese. And I read this book called The Cheese Trap that was about, it was also what I like about this book is it wasn't a shameful book that's like, shame on you for eating dairy. Oh, you're a bad person. It was just like, here's some things to know. Do the best
Yeah.
you can. And it
Yeah.
was like about how we're all literally addicted to cheese.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like a bummer, but also kind of made it easier to like
Let it go.
step off of it because
Yeah.
it didn't make me feel like shame and guilt for the fact that I couldn't give it up easily. So
Yeah. It kind of is like, oh, it's not me.
yeah,
It's kind of like cigarettes are addicting. Like now we
yeah,
know that. And so then it's like it doesn't like it helps and it doesn't help, but yeah,
mhm,
I could see how it would help kind of reframe, okay, well, this is why I'm craving it because of these
yeah.
reasons.
For sure.
So,
So yeah, so I went vegan and then I noticed like my pain was it wasn't gone, it was just a lot more manageable.
mhm,
And after grad school, I got this like cystic acne like on my cheeks and it was so painful. Like if I put on
mm.
my respirator, the bands like killed me. It was so awful. And like my depression and anxiety was like terrible because I just got out of grad school and I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
going to do with my life? I'm just going to try to start a business, I guess. And then
Yeah.
there's just, I felt awful. I had like no energy. And I noticed like when I went vegan, I was also exercising more and I was like
Mhm.
meeting more people in the community too and closer to my family. So those things also factor in. It's not just like, oh, change your diet, you won't have depression, but like it helped me a
Yeah.
lot personally.
Yeah.
And I would never tell like my goal is never like everyone go vegan. It's just I'm sharing like my experience, which is significantly different than everyone else. Like at the shop now, Radish Kitchen, people come in sometimes and they're like, vegan, where's the meat? And I go, oh well, if you're looking for like potatoes, you can get them here. If you want meat, you should go to Pottstown or you should go to Alwyn and Sons. Like get it locally, get it from someone that,
Yeah.
just try not to support the industrial
Yeah.
agriculture. Like that's what sucks. But like if you're gonna get meat, try to get it from a butcher. Like that's great. I support that. Go for it, you
It's
know?
better for them and it's better for the actual like consumer as well.
Hmm.
Like probably anyways.
Yeah. So like, yeah, if you want to go vegan, you should try it. If you don't, then you don't have to. Like
Yeah.
I always say like the ethics of veganism to me are do the least amount of harm with what's in your control. So
Mhm.
for me, that means like paying attention to what I'm eating and engaging in my community and helping people in the ways that I can and that are within my control and my power, and like
Yeah.
caring for myself, and sharing the information I have, but also knowing when I really need to be listening and learning from others. So I'm very big on like what that means. And yes, like vegan for the animals too, that's great, but
Yeah.
also like that's not why I went vegan personally, but I like respect whatever people want to do with their own life and their own bodies. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so I went vegan and felt great. And when I started sharing like food I was making, people would ask me for recipes or be like, "Oh, how'd you come up with that?" And be like, "I don't know, it's what I had, and I
I
can't buy other
remember when you
stuff."
first
So
started the Upbeat Jams
mhm.
Instagram, and I remember
Yeah,
you just
it
saying,
was just
"This is
recipes.
just to show how I'm putting my food together."
Yeah, and how you can do it like as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
So because I try not to use the word affordable because I feel like affordable for whom, you
Yeah,
know?
that's
Like,
it's relative to the
yeah,
everybody. It's yeah.
yeah.
So,
So here's what you can do with like the least amount of ingredients possible and
yeah.
still make it like taste good and be unique and different. And it's also like simple. So I was sharing recipes, and then, with like growing up in this punk DIY scene, music is obviously important to me as it's important to everybody in their own way. But like
Yeah.
I started sharing a song with every recipe. So that was where the upbeat jams and then beats, because I love beats. I dyed my wedding dress with beats. Okay, so I in the pandemic, like, well, we're still in the pandemic, but like
Yeah.
when we were in lockdown, quarantine, there was that period when like you could kind of get with people in a small bubble. Like
Yeah.
you had to be careful and you can't like socialize, but maybe if you saw like two people, that's okay. So I was walking with my sister every day
Yeah.
or like once a week or something. I don't know, seeing my sister. And then I was seeing my friend Jackie, and we were meeting at her studio for lunch, which is at North Art Studios, which is in the basement of the St. Paul's Episcopal Church. So they rented out all of these, what used to be classrooms, and like fixed them up to be artist studios.
Mhm.
So Barbie has a space there too. And my friend Alexander Martin shares a space with Barbie. So like people that I know are like in there making art. And that's how I like got connected with the church, which is important in the story later on.
Mhm.
So me and Jackie were meeting for lunch every Wednesday. And I remember one time it was like this time of year, like farmers market season, and I came and I had beet chips. I love the beets. And
Mhm.
then I had zucchini noodles, and I chopped up some like tomatoes and put some garlic and oregano and like some basil and whatever, and like tossed it in the zucchini noodles, and then like something to drink. And she had Impossible Whopper, and she like looked at her food and looked at my food, and she was like, "Will you make me lunch tomorrow or next Wednesday?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love cooking for people. I would love to do that." So I started making lunch for her. And then one day she was like, "I have an idea. Could I pay you to maybe make me like a week of meals? I just want to like eat better and I like the food you're making and whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll like write you a menu proposal. Like I'll make like an entree and a dessert with all of them, and they'll all be vegan and like whole foods, and we'll try it out." So I was making food for her, and she's paying me every week. And then
Mhm.
Danny was at Freedom Inc. at the time as the shop guy there, and
Mhm.
two of the artists there were like talking about how they eat like crap all the time, and they're like
Yeah.
buying like getting takeout all the time, and it costs so much. And Danny's like, "Well, Jam's making food for her friend. Maybe you could do it. She'll make it for you too." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll like get containers to like pack them up for you and like make it nice." So I started making for three people, and then more people wanted it, more people wanted it. And I was like, maybe I could like do this as like
Yeah.
a side hustle until I'm teaching again, and
Yeah.
until like Black Dog is picking up again, because we couldn't pour, because like
Yeah.
the last thing
COVID.
you can do is travel and be by people, so
Yeah.
nobody's pouring iron.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I remember I was cooking for like seven people, and I was like, I don't have room in the
Mhm.
kitchen. So I would
Mhm.
cook half, deliver them to everybody, come home, cook the other half, and then deliver again. And it
Oh,
was like,
wow.
oh, I don't have room and this is
Yeah.
exhausting and I can't do this forever. So then Jackie was like, well, what if you talk to Jonathan and Jenny at the St. Paul's Episcopal Church, because they're not having services and they have a kitchen. And I
Mm.
was like,
Yeah.
well, it's probably like a little, I don't know, I haven't spent a lot of time in churches, but I like thought it was going to be like an office kitchen where there's like a microwave.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a mini fridge. You didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I scheduled a time to meet with Jonathan. He's like, yeah, I'll show you around. So I went and looked at the kitchen, and it was like there's an 8 burner stove and like
Wow.
a
Yeah.
gas and electric oven. There was like a 2 door fridge and a
Yeah.
freezer. And I was like, this is this
This
is
is
exactly what I need. So he's like, okay, yeah, you can cook here for a while. So I cooked there for like a year, like almost a little over a year, I think. And my friend Hannah had moved back to Peoria from Carbondale, and she posted a picture on Instagram and said something about how she's unemployed and looking for a job. And I was like, I need help with this meal prep thing. Do you want to come cook with me and I'll pay you? And she's like, yeah, I'll come hang out. And Hannah cooked with me for a year.
nice.
And it
Yeah.
was really fun. We just like had fun in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So Hannah ran the taco stand in Carbondale, which was like a punk house. So she
Mm-hmm.
booked shows too. So like I just knew her from shows growing up because she's also from Peoria. And
Mm-hmm.
we both
Mm-hmm.
lived in Carbondale at the same time and then moved back. So that was fun. And then yeah, the business just kept like growing and growing. And then the church was like having services again, and they were
Yeah.
like, you're gonna like, you can use it, but you're gonna have to pay rent or like share the space. And I was like, totally understandable. But so then I was like, I guess like if I'm gonna keep doing this, I need to like, you know, find a space, I guess. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what this will be. So I kind of imagined actually um I had to change the name too, I'll say, because when I started selling beyond friends and family, people thought they're like upbeat jam. So what do you do, like jam subscriptions? And I was like, no. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, like it's
Confusing.
jelly. And I was like, oh no, it's food. My name is Jam. And they're like, so it's not
Yeah.
jelly? Like, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'll
A
have
little
to
bit
shift
of
this.
confusion could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when I moved into this, I found this storefront and it's perfect. It was really gross. So we spent 2 months cleaning it.
Wow.
Um, and then we moved in and opened in March. And it's the first and only dedicated vegan cafe in Peoria. There's another dedicated vegan facility, which is Riley's Vegan Sweets and Eats, and she's a
Mm-hmm.
bakery. And
Mm-hmm.
I sell her stuff in my store. And she also sells at Hy-Vee in Peoria. And we're talking about like collaborating on some dinner parties and like public picnics and stuff. So
Awesome.
again, like a great thing about Peoria is like, yeah, we could be direct competition, but we're not, because we're doing different things and
Yeah.
serving like the same people, but in different ways and in
Yeah.
different parts of Peoria. So like, we just want to like look to collaborate as often as we
Yeah.
can and like build each other up. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And I
And I
also
love her.
I also feel like the more that is available vegan for the population, the more the population may feel catered to and may actually kind of grow. So I
Yeah.
think it's like that whole rising tides raise all ships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, so now Radish Kitchen is the business now, and it's awesome. Danny works there too. That's where we spend like most of our time, and we try to do Black Dog as much as we can too. But like, for Black Dog, it's like it doesn't make us as much money because not everyone needs metal art or needs classes, but everyone needs to eat, and not everyone needs to eat vegan. But like, it's easier to like widen that net and bring in people to buy things from you when it's something you're going to do every day anyway, which is eating. Like, you might not pour iron every day. Like, I
Yeah.
wish I could,
Yeah.
but it's just it's not as sustainable. So Black Dog has become like a thing that we invest a lot of our like love and time into when we can. But Radish Kitchen is what is, because that's all that we're living off of is
Yeah.
Radish Kitchen now. So we have to like put in a lot of time and energy to keep it going and keep it afloat. So we're trying to do both,
Yeah.
which is
And
a
just
lot, but
to circle back to one of the points that you said about everybody needs to eat. And the thing also though is like offering vegan food, non-vegans can eat vegan food. but
Yeah, for
vegans
sure.
cannot, or vegans tend to not eat non-vegan food, but
Right.
it's like you're still catering to the entire population, and
Hmm.
they can just, whoever chooses to come will come. And so then another thing that I was going to bring up that you made me think about was just because, you're talking about, you're doing the Radish Kitchen, um, like really focusing on it because it's like
Hmm.
a wider audience, but Black Dog Metal Arts, it like one thing that I'm learning, I guess to finish my sentence, I should say, I felt like you were kind of, I got the feeling that you were kind of like, I don't know how to say it, like you're not doing it as much as you want to right now, is like kind of what I was getting from your language.
Hmm.
And what it made me think about, and this is more just like I'm telling you as a friend, is like a thought that I had that was triggered by the way you were speaking.
Hmm.
Like one thing that I've gotten from doing all these interviews, especially doing interviews of people that have more life experience. And by have more life experience, I literally mean are older than us, but like in a very respectful way. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
like the old people, but the people that have
Yeah.
more life experience because they were just born before we were. Their stories are so inspiring because it shows me that even if there was a 5-year period where they had to slog away at a day job and have their passion project at night,
Hmm.
like the overarching is they still were doing that. They, there's seasons in our lives for so much. And so it's
Hmm.
like, you just opened the storefront in March. This is what you're having to focus on right now, but
Hmm.
it's not going to be forever. And,
Yeah.
with personnel and dialing in the business and having, establishing new things that you're learning about that I can't even speak to because I've never really worked in food service before. But it's like the pendulum may swing back to a point where you can devote more time and energy on Black Dog Metal Arts, but it's
Oh
there
yeah.
when you're able to.
Oh yeah, and I'm already getting there because my staff is awesome. Like everybody that works there rules. I love everybody so much. And everybody, I'm really bad at taking breaks. Like if I take a break, I feel guilty. So I need to either like schedule it or like know that like everybody's okay with me taking a break. And everyone
Mm,
that works there knows that about me. So they'll be like,
mhm.
"Oh, well, why don't you leave?" Or, "Oh, well, like we're all good here. So just go, you know?" And like, "Yeah, I will leave. That's fine." So last week actually I took the day off and I went to the foundry and I worked on I just we didn't, I don't have any money, so I just kind of
Yeah.
worked with like scrap I could find, and I was like, okay, I want to make. I've been wanting to make this coffin for a while, so I'm
Mhm.
going to do a study of it, just welding some of the like scrap metal we have. So I started like welding up the body of a coffin to get started. And we've got some rod and my friend Alexander Martin that I mentioned, they do drag in the area and they're
Mhm.
so good. We were talking about like a dress that I just wanted to make a metal dress. And I was like, great, yeah, I can do it. But like, I'm not a person that expresses myself through my body movements. Like, I'm not a performance artist in that
Mhm.
way. And
Mhm.
like, I don't, but you know who does? Alexander Martin or Artemisia Van Ho, which is their
Mm.
drag name, their
Yeah.
stage name. So I
Mhm.
was like, I'm just gonna ask them what they think. I was like, I want to make a metal dress. If I made it to your body's proportions, like, would you like wear it? And they're like, oh my God, yeah. So we've been like talking about what to do with that. And I have a plan and I welded like the body kind of
Uh-huh.
and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to connect all these parts, but what if it doesn't fit them? And what if I don't know? So that's something I'm working on right now. That's just kind of been sitting for way too long. But yeah,
Oh,
it feels good.
are we in Hot on the Horizon? And
Oh,
we just rolled right into what's hot on the
I
horizon.
guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, like, lay it on me, sister.
Well, with like my personal work, I've been working on like that metal dress with Alex, which I'm really excited about that. So with Radish Kitchen, we've been doing a lot of like events. I try to do like one event a month to start out. And we did like a yoga event with my friend Janie, and I served a 3-course meal with a juice pairing with every part of the meal. And then we did this drag dinner, but it was a brunch, so we called it Brenner. But it was at night.
Yeah.
So, and that was amazing. And like I cried that whole time. And then we did like a date night dinner party, which was like fine dining. And Danny used to wait tables in fine dining, and I never did. I worked in kitchens. So I was like, me and Jacob are going to cook. You just do what you do. I don't know. Give
Yeah.
everybody a fine dining experience. But yeah, so I was just talking to Alex about trying to have another drag event maybe in September, selfishly because my birthday's in September and I just like want that to happen at my shop. But also like, you know, I told them I want to do it 4 times a year, and it's coming up because the last was in June. So I was like, well, I wonder if I can get that dress done in time. That would be a great reveal because I have a lot of layers, like literally that go to the elements of the dress. And I just like, oh man, I can't wait to be like, to have the time to really dedicate to work on that dress. And I jumped back into my research on the Almond Dunbar Fisk metallic burial cases. So I was like, I was getting back into the coffins, which I put on hold because of COVID. I felt like they could be misconstrued or become distasteful or like trivialize all of the deaths of like real people. And
I could see how, it could.
And I didn't want to
bad timing.
I didn't want to have conversations about COVID when I was trying to like do research on these other things that served a different purpose, but it's going to be there and you're going to have to. So I just wanted to continue the research. So I was kind of dipping back into the coffins. But also with Radish Kitchen, I'm making like a lot of cakes all the time, which is like equally fulfilling to my sculpture practice, because it's like learning a new method and learning a new skill. And still like whenever I'm typing the decorations on the cakes and like putting in the frosting to like come out a certain way, it's the same as when I'm like, okay, what kind of finish am I going to put on this? And now I'm going to like feel it in this way, or maybe I'll polish it, maybe I won't, or like I'm going to chase it now and whatever. It's like the same fulfillment in a totally different method. That's very fun. So I was thinking about like trying to just for fun, like merge my research in the coffins, but also like with the cakes, and like maybe do some kind of cast elements of the coffin with like the cake piping tools that I won't ever use again on food. But like, you know.
Oh yeah. No, it's so funny because I just wrote down, because I was going to say it. I just wrote down cast iron cakes.
Yeah, I want to.
Anyways, but you already, I was like, oh, I gotta write this down.
Yeah.
And tell her, but not interrupt her. So anyway,
I think it was this week. I made Elvis cupcakes. So they were like vanilla cupcakes, and then the filling, it was bananas and some peanut butter, and then I had hazelnuts and cinnamon and vanilla, so like Nutella. And that was like, I cut out the center of the cupcake and put that in there, and then I made like a whipped buttercream icing that's vegan or frosting, and then I put some of that like filling in there too. And I came out to Alyssa that works with me. She books all of the shows in Peoria. Shout out to Our House Peoria. You should check them out. It's really great. But I came up and I was like, I don't know what to call these cupcakes. Call them the dopest cupcakes you've ever had. And she's like, why don't we call them Elvis cupcakes? And I was like, oh, that's much better. So
it takes a village. It takes a village.
So when I was like frosting them, I was like, ooh, this tip, the way like the frosting was layering over in a spiral, that would be such a cool thing cast in iron. Or like maybe like bronze, and then I put a patina on it that when I like go back in, it's in those groups. That'd be so cool. Ooh. So I was like thinking about buying the same piping tips and figure out like, could what I material? Warm up some plasticine and squeeze it? I don't know.
What material? Anybody that's listening here, we'll put it out. Anybody that's listening, what material can be piped through piping bags with frosting tips?
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Like, I'm thinking like plaster that then would harden, but then that might be not the best.
Like, I guess if I did it a little like thick, maybe it would hold its
But
own.
it's also
I'll
like
try
you've
it.
got limited working time. No, I just was I'm just spitballing. Like there's limited work time. And I don't know, yeah, if it would hold.
Maybe I could put like a medium in the plaster mixture to try to like
Or is
thicken
there
it up.
some sort of a like latex that could be thickened that you could
Probably
like
like
pipe it?
medium with paint. Like maybe I could get cheap paint and get the right medium and like type that out.
Because it's interesting because I've seen like, what about just like silicone caulk?
Yeah,
Huh.
maybe.
Like if you were like, all right, I'm ready. Because I like it pretty much will take the shape of whatever the tip is cut, you
Yeah, I guess
know?
I've only put it out of like a circular thing. I don't
Right.
know if it'll like those like sharp edges will read if I
I don't
do
know.
a tip. I'll try. Yeah,
Well,
that'll
just
be
thinking
fun.
is an interesting thing to think about. But anyways, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like, how do you because then it's like whatever that is, you'd want to mold it,
Hmm.
like probably a rubber mold
Oh
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Like,
And
what about wax? I don't know.
I feel like wax is too thick
I
or
think
too
so.
runny. Like I don't know. My first thought was like warm up some plasticine really good and try to
Yeah.
just pull that out
Yeah.
and see how it goes.
I
But then
think
I
that that's
thought,
a
well,
cheap way. Yeah.
how do I mold it up? Because if I could like try a sand mold, but if I had something with a lot of undercuts, then it's got to be able to maybe be in shell if it's too complex. But then how do you clean the shell out of that metal later on
Mm,
without like breaking if there's too many? So yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out, but I'm really
so
excited to
much. Yeah,
explore
that's
that.
super. I'm jazzed about that idea.
Yeah.
Whew. Trying to think. I mean, because it's like when you could you sandblast the ceramic shell out of the
Oh yeah.
cavities?
I could
But
get a
then
lot, but
you're left with sandblasted texture. Like there's
yeah.
no way to go back from that, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Hmm.
I'm excited. That's hot. That's wicked hot.
Yeah. That'll be fun. Yeah. So I'm excited to like jump into that new territory too. But yeah, we were hoping to have a pour in September or October because
Mhm.
Alyssa, that runs our house Peoria, she was talking about booking something called FemFest, where it would be like a bunch of bands that have like women in them
Yeah.
and people who identify as female or like non-binary.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
she was like reaching out to bands and figuring that out. And then she asked if we'd do something. I was like, I would love to do another pour, like the female pour we did in November, but like, you know, now we can do it at our new space because we're at
Mhm.
a new location at the mill, which is
Mhm.
awesome. I love the mill. Our landlord is amazing. I love Ted. I love all the artists at the mill. Like it's just such a great place to be. And there's like a really cool parking lot. And right next to it is Wheel Art Pottery, where Jacob Grant does like there's kilns outside.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, well, maybe we could use those to preheat shells.
Mm.
And then we could just pull them out and actually
Mhm.
have shells instead of somebody just like blasting the shell with a torch, which is
Yeah.
fine. But you
Yeah.
know, if we got a kiln, let's use it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're really excited to be able to pour there soon. So if that happens, I'll definitely like share a lot about it. But me and Danny have been talking about like if we don't pour as part of FemFest, then we're gonna like shoot to do a pour in early November because
Okay.
when we poured before, so we got married on Halloween. Then we
Mhm.
had the opening reception for that international exhibition Fierce that I curated with Kristen Tordella Williams.
Mhm.
And then we had the iron pour. So that would have been November 2nd,
Mhm.
2019.
Yeah.
Is that when I
Yeah.
got married? Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and November was great. I remember it snowed on Halloween that year, but then the weather for the iron pour was beautiful. It's like the
Yeah.
perfect cold.
It was. It was. Because I remember like as soon as that furnace was on blast, I didn't feel cold out. Like it was perfect. Like you
Hmm.
just don't it's nice to go to an iron pour and not sweat,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
To just be like
And
comfortable.
That was our old furnace that had like a 4-inch refractory
Yeah,
lining.
yeah.
And so
It
the
was the good
burn-in
boy,
was like,
right? The
yeah,
good,
the good
the
boy.
good
It was like
boy.
a 3-hour burn-in. But
Yeah.
now we have a new furnace that we named Slayer Quimby. And it's like so fast, so efficient. It's like the perfect, a much thinner refractory
Yeah.
lining, like it should be. And the burn-in is so much quicker. Like I love this new furnace. I can't wait for you to come see it.
I can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
the whole time you're talking about dates, I'm like, just tell me when and I will drop
Yeah.
everything. I
Yeah.
will because
Yeah.
and we'll blast it. We'll let people know on the podcast. We'll put it on social media.
Mhm.
Like we'll make sure that everybody knows, and
Oh
we'll
yeah.
get a family gathering of pouring. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'll cook for everybody. And I always want to cook for everybody at the pours. But now that I have Radish Kitchen, I can just line up the tables and make some food.
Mm-hmm,
And for
mm-hmm.
people who aren't vegan, like I'll get something for you. Or you just eat it. You're just gonna
We'll
eat it and
cross.
love
Yeah, I think like that's
it.
what I think is
Yeah.
like they'll still love it. And also
Yeah.
that's like we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
So finishing up on Hot on the Horizon, are we? I don't know why I just said that
Yes.
sentence like that.
So events at Radish Kitchen. I'm working on some new work. We're trying to have a pour. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure I'm gonna like watch this later and be like, ah, dang it, I forgot to talk about
That's
that.
fine.
Yeah. So
That's fine.
anyway, that's
But
pretty much what we got.
all right. Well, it sounds super exciting. And I just can't wait to, I mean, because I'm so close. Like I'm itching to pour with you guys again. So I'm really looking forward to that part of the Hot on the Horizon. But now I want to know about any advice that you have to us in
Oh,
the community.
okay. Well, first, what I used to say to my students, and I said this earlier too, was like, you're capable of much more than you realize. It's just a matter of like finding the support
Mm,
and the means to do the things that you don't think you can do.
mhm,
And support in many ways, like whether that means like a person or a group of people or financial support or time or whatever, but like just like with starting both of these businesses with Black Dog and Radish Kitchen, it was all like I never would have been like, oh, I'm just gonna start Radish Kitchen. Great. It's like this thing, then this thing, then this thing, but wanting to continue the trajectory forward, even when it feels like everything is kind of stacked against me and I can't do it. I just try to tackle what is within my power. And I never knew I would be capable of doing all these things, but I just have the support from like Danny to be able to keep doing these things. And that's great. And then, yeah, flapping the
He's
coattails.
slapping the
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a little clip in the video on
Like,
YouTube of him when
yeah.
he was doing it. Anyways.
And then the other thing I was gonna say, I say this at roller derby now all the time too, is like because we all like kind of started at the same time, this like class of we're called newbies. Well, now I moved up, but was like people would be like, oh, I'm bad at this, oh, I'm terrible, oh, I suck. And I'm like, now is the time to suck at it because you're gonna only get better if you keep doing these things. But when
Yeah.
you look back, you're like, oh wow, look how far I've come. Or like, oh wow, look how like different these things are. Like now I used to say it to my students too when I was teaching like sculpture and drawing. They'd be like, oh well, sorry, I suck at drawing. And I'd be like, good, you should suck at drawing. That's why you're here. Like if you came and paid for this class and you were good at drawing, you're not really getting your money's worth. Like, yeah, I can push you and challenge you, but if you suck at drawing, that's what you want. So, like, if you want to start something but you suck at it, then good. Just
Yeah.
keep trying it and just keep like finding the people who want to help you and like again, like the support that you need. So, I guess
Yeah.
those are my long-winded advices.
I didn't think they were very long-winded at all. And I wanted to, it's really interesting because that whole like, I that whole mentality of I suck at this and apologetic and stuff. And you're right. It's like in I'm at a stage in my life right now personally where I've been looking at a lot of things with a new perspective of
Mm-hmm.
like having more time on this earth, and looking back at 5 years from now, I would have never thought, even like a lot of things that are true in my life, I would have never thought were possible for me in 5 years, and or even ever. And so, starting the YouTube channel, I didn't have a camera. I
Mhm.
didn't have a computer that could handle editing software. I had no idea how to film anything. I had to teach myself the software, and so it's like sometimes not knowing how deep something is before you're like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to, like, not knowing is almost like a blessing, because if I had known how much work it is,
Yeah.
I think I talked to somebody else about this too, or no, actually it was in a private conversation with a friend of mine, but he said that he heard Tina Fey talking about having a comedy TV show. She said
Mhm.
that if she had known how much work it would have been, no, how did he say it? If Tina Fey knew how much work it was going to be to have your own TV show, she would have never done it. But because
Mhm.
she always wanted that as a goal, she kind of started it just because it was a goal. And then along the way, she learned how hard it was to get. But yeah, I think that a lot of these things that we start, if it's a career as an artist, or a hobby, or a new business as an entrepreneur, if we know how hard it is, or if how much is unknown is known, that's too daunting. It's better to
Mhm.
just take the first class. Just show
Yeah.
up to the first derby practice.
Yeah.
Just put your pinky toe put your pinky toe in the water.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and that's another thing that I've been realizing is I might not be accomplishing the goal that I set out to accomplish when I started,
Mhm.
but as like life changes and my perspectives change, but also my goals change, like to be okay with not accomplishing the goal. The reason why I started, I don't actually have to accomplish that goal, because
Mhm.
I might find I have a better connection with the community, and my more of a finger on the pulse
Mhm.
of the cast iron art community if I'm producing this podcast, as opposed to
Mhm.
like a YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting to like think about things. And we do have time. There is time, and there's
Yeah.
seasons, and things ebb and flow. And I feel like it's a constant daily an affirmation that I have to tell myself is like, it's okay. You've got plenty of time. Just, you know, you have to work, but do what you love, and
Mhm.
everything will come. And it is. And so I think I see that same like kind of theme in your journey too. Is like, you got out of grad school and you weren't like, I'm going to have a storefront cafe,
Yeah.
eventually turn into a restaurant. That's where you're
Mhm.
heading.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's like, just be open and
Yeah, one thing at a time.
gentle with yourself too. I think, especially coming out of the pandemic, and depression is like, I'm struggling with it too. I think it's really rampant, whether people are acknowledging it or not. And I think most people are
Mhm.
acknowledging it. It's like, we're struggling a lot. A lot
Mhm.
more people are struggling more than they ever have. And so, but having these passion things that keep us going is like, it's part of the battle.
Yeah,
And
for
we're
sure.
winning.
Yeah.
So, that pretty much ends up our show for today. And so we're going to go on over to the after show. And so, do you want to tease for the public audience what we're going to talk about during the after show?
Danny told my good story, but
Yeah, in his after show, he stole it
I
from you.
he did, but I will share it from my point of view, and I will
Oh.
tell an embarrassing story about Danny.
Oh.
So
And also, I wanted to tell you something about a coffin that
Mm.
in the after show, just like, because it's
Ooh,
more of a
okay.
personal thing. I shouldn't
Yeah,
say it
yeah.
like that. I'm going to tell you about a coffin. It's like it was an art coffin.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not anything macabre, like crazy, but yeah. So let's go on over to the after show. Jam, thank you so much for being on the show today and letting me interview you. It's been so much fun. I think I had more fun just having conversations with you than I let myself have with other people. So it's been just kind of nice to relax and have a chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was wonderful to see you and talk to you. And thank you so much for sharing your platform with me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like anytime. I'm
Yeah,
loving
as you
this.
always do. You always come and share what you have. Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thank you. I love you and Danny so much, and Eddie. And I've met your cats, but I don't remember either of their names.
Oh, it's Charlie, Phyllis, and Hank. We have three
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And we all love you so much.
All right. So everybody, we're gonna go on after to the after show, but thanks so much for tuning in. And if we don't see you in the after show, which I hope we do, but if we don't, we'll see you in the next episode. Okay. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm sure you could tell that Jam is a dear friend of mine, and it was such a gift for me to catch up with her while also learning about her early years and how she blossomed into the artist and business owner that she is today. Hearing how she reframes life's challenges and creates opportunities from them is inspirational to witness, and I'm very excited to see where her hard work and dedication take her in the years to come. Jam, thank you so much for giving me your time and letting me derail our conversations at so many points during your interview. I enjoyed finally getting to catch up so much, and I think that at times I forgot we were trying to record a podcast. Anyways, best of luck on the dress that you're working on. I know it will turn out fabulous. I'm also waiting with excitement and anticipation to see what comes of your iron coffin research, but more importantly, great job with Black Dog Metal Arts and Radish Kitchen so far. Keep up the good work, and I see amazing achievements in your future related to all of your endeavors. Also, I'm going to start making patterns and molds for the fall, so please let me know when you and Black Dog Metal Arts will be hosting a pour, because I can't wait to come up and sling some iron with you and Danny. If you want to follow Jam on Instagram, her handle is jam_ROHR. And also follow Black Dog Metal Arts on Instagram and visit the website www.blackdogmetalarts.com to learn more about what Jam and Danny are up to with the metal arts business. And of course, if you're in the central Illinois area or happen to find yourself in that region, check out Radish Kitchen. The website for this is radishkitchen.org, and on Instagram, you can follow them at Radish Kitchen Peoria. And for one last word of thanks to our top supporter, Sloss Metal Arts, as well as our other supporters on Patreon. The funds that they support me with are invaluable to help me continue producing these episodes. If you would like access to the after shows for as little as $1 a month, go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/podcastiron. You can choose what contribution level fits within your budget, and supporters at any level get access to the after show from each episode. And by now, you already probably know that it's just an extra 15 to 20 minutes with the show's guest, where we talk a little more candidly and share at least one more story. Now, there's a running joke where, more often than not, the after show is just as long as the public episode. So if you really enjoy these episodes and can't find audio content related to cast iron art anywhere else, it might be worth the $12 a year to join. If you don't have it in your budget to support the podcast Iron on Patreon, that's okay. Instead, could you share this podcast with someone you think will be interested in listening or watching? Because I'll appreciate that just as much. Anything and everything helps. And for that, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you happen to be watching the show on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the Podcast Iron channel. This way, you can set up notifications for when each episode goes live. But also, I'm working towards 100 subscribers, because reaching that milestone will allow me to change the channel URL from a random arrangement of numbers and letters that I've been assigned by YouTube to a more personal URL. And I would love to have the YouTube website be youtube.com/podcastiron. So for those of you who have subscribed, thank you for helping me make this dream a reality. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening and watching. I'm sending you all my love always, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day. Okay.
Hey, it's
Danny.
Danny.
My gosh. Hi.
Hi, I just came up to say hi. James in the
Hold
bathroom.
on, let me turn my camera on so I can catch this. I just Just chilling on Instagram, and I just thought you were Jam.
No. I came to steal a little spotlight and say hi to my
What's
friend.
happening, man?
Not much, dude. I don't know. Into a long day. What's happening with you?
Yeah, just performing an awesome interview, and it's Saturday.
It
Thank
is
God it's Saturday.
Which is your
man.
favorite day of the week?
It is. Oh my God.
I knew I asked for a reason. Well, Jam's back, by the way, so I'm done stealing
Okay.
spotlight. Okay, bye.
Bye.